It was a bright sunny day on the Island of Sodor. Duncan and Rheneas were boasting about some of their great deliveries when Emily arrived, pulling sand to Brendam docks.
Yes, well, I have had some pretty exciting deliveries in my day, but the most exciting was probably a big elephant statue.
Really? Well, once I had to deliver a great big dinosaur skeleton.
Wow, an elephant and a dinosaur. And I'm just delivering sand.
Gordon was picking up passengers at Marin Station when Emily came by.
Hello, Gordon. Have you ever had any really exciting deliveries?
Well, I've carried an opera singer on my express, and some actors, and even the Queen.
Oh my! The Queen? That would be exciting.
At last, Emily arrived at Brendam docks, but she was starting to feel a little sorry for herself.
What's wrong, Emily?
Thomas, have you ever delivered anything exciting?
Oh, yes. Lots of times. Once, I delivered a jet engine. It started up, and I went flying across Sodor at supersonic speed.
Oh, I've never delivered anything exciting.
I bet you have, Emily. Think really hard.
Well, there was that time I took Sodor United's football kit to the laundry.
Stinky laundry isn't exciting, Emily. Not like a jet engine. Stinky laundry, stinky laundry.
Poor Emily. She wished that she had something really exciting to deliver instead of just sand. The very next day, Sir Topham Hatt sent Emily off to collect her special.
It's bound to be more sand.
But it wasn't more sand.
Bust my buffers! Wow!
Emily had to take a giant model of the world to the animal park.
This is the most exciting delivery I've ever had. I can't wait to show the other engines.
Charlie and Eddie. On the island of Sodor, all the engines are proud to work for Sir Topham Hatt's railway. They chuff and puff, and heave and haul their hardest to make sure Sir Topham Hatt is proud of them. One morning, Sir Topham Hatt's car had broken down. Edward was to take the car to Marin Station. The mechanic was waiting there to fix it. Edward was proud to help Sir Topham Hatt. Just then, Charlie chuffed cheerily in.
Good morning, Charlie.
Hello, Edward. Do you want to hear a good joke? Where do crocodiles keep their money?
I don't know.
In a riverbank.
But Edward didn't laugh. He didn't even smile.
I have an important job to do. I have to take Sir Topham Hatt's car to Marin Station to be fixed. He needs it this evening. I must hurry.
Charlie sighed.
You know, Edward, maybe you're too old to be fun.
Edward stopped. He didn't like being told that he was too old to be fun. He thought he was as much fun as any young engine.
I can be a lot of fun, Charlie.
Then show me.
Edward huffed and puffed. He knew he should chuff carefully to Marin Station with Sir Topham Hatt's car. But he also knew Charlie wouldn't think that was fun. So, Edward decided not to take the careful track.
Follow me, Charlie. I'll take you on the bumpiest and jumpiest, the twistiest and turniest tracks to Marin Station. Then you'll see just how much fun I can be.
I'm ready, Eddie.
So Edward puffed away to Marin Station, with Charlie chuffing close behind. First, Edward and Charlie clickety-clacked along the bumpiest tracks. They jiggled and joggled, and they bumped and they jumped.
Whee! This is fun!
Next, Edward and Charlie rattled round some of the bendiest bends.
Fizzling fireboxes! I didn't think you'd be this much fun, Edward!
This made Edward happy. Edward and Charlie rocked and they rolled. They giggled and jiggled, and they told jokes.
Okay, Charlie, I have a joke for you. How do you know when an engine is eating?
I don't know, Eddie. Tell me.
You hear it chewing.
That's a good one, Eddie. You really are the most fun of all.
At last, Edward and Charlie puffed into Marin Station. Thomas was there, but there was no mechanic on the platform.
Hello, Edward. The mechanic was waiting for you. Now he's left on Bertie the bus.
Suddenly, Edward was worried.
Oh, my. I spent too much time on the bumpy and bendy tracks having fun.
Charlie sighed.
Is that as much fun as you could be, Edward?
Edward didn't like that.
No! I can be much more fun than that. We'll chase Bertie the bus to catch up with the mechanic.
Good idea! I'm ready, Eddie!
So, Edward and Charlie pumped their pistons and chuffed off for the chase. Edward and Charlie raced and chased after Bertie the bus. They thundered through crossings. They flew over bridges. And they clattered through tunnels. But Edward and Charlie couldn't catch up with Bertie.
Flat my funnel! That was fun!
Now, Edward was even more worried. He had not done his job. Sir Topham Hatt would be cross.
I think we should stop at the next junction. Then we can ask the signalman to send a message to the mechanic.
I was right. You are too old to be fun.
Edward didn't like that. Then, an idea flew into his funnel.
We'll take Sir Topham Hatt's car to the steamworks to be fixed. It's always fun there.
Charlie was surprised.
Bubbling boilers, Edward! That will be the most fun of all! I'm ready, Eddie!
So, Charlie and Edward puffed off to the steamworks. Charlie and Edward steamed in.
Hello, Kevin. Where's Victor?
Hello, Edward. Victor has gone to pick up a part. Can I help?
I'd like you to fix Sir Topham Hatt's car.
Kevin was surprised.
Sling my hook. We don't fix cars.
I'm sure you can. We will be back later to pick up the car.
Edward, you're not too old to have fun. You're the most fun of all.
That made Edward very happy. Later, Charlie and Edward returned. Kevin was very excited.
Here you are, Edward.
Kevin trundled to one side. He giggled giddily. There was Sir Topham Hatt's car with a funnel on its roof.
It's a fun funnel.
Edward gasped. Just then, Sir Topham Hatt arrived. He didn't think the funnel was fun at all.
Edward, what have you done to my car?
Edward felt terrible.
I'm sorry, sir. I was trying to be really useful and really fun. But it has all gone wrong. This is a disaster. I wish I had just been really useful.
So do I, Edward.
Please, sir. I can take you and Lady Hatt this evening. Then, tomorrow morning, your car will be fixed.
Very well, Edward.
Edward had puffed into Knapford Station with Sir Topham and Lady Hatt. Charlie was there.
Hello, Eddie. I'm ready for more fun.
Not now, Charlie. It's not the time for fun. It's the time to be really useful. I have to hurry to the steamworks.
Edward puffed into the steamworks. Charlie chuffed close behind.
Would you like to hear another joke, Edward?
No, thank you, Charlie. This isn't the time for jokes. I have to collect Sir Topham Hatt's car. Kevin, please take the funnel off Sir Topham Hatt's car. It was fun, but it wasn't really useful.
Right, boss. Edward, whatever you say.
Thank you, Kevin.
Later, Edward puffed out of the steamworks with Sir Topham Hatt's car. It was as good as new and funnel-free. All along the track, as Edward clickety-clacked, children whistled and waved.
This is fun.
And Charlie had to agree. Henry's health and safety. The engines of Sodor all want to be really useful. Their wheels whir, their pistons pump, and their boilers bubble brightly. But sometimes things can go wrong. One morning, Henry was huffing happily. He clickety-clacked around a bend, straight into an old freight car.
Flatten my funnel. Who left that there?
Henry's piston rods were bumped and bent.
Oh my! Henry, I will shunt you to the steamworks.
Thank you, hero.
Victor was pleased to see Henry.
Kevin and I will have your pistons pumping by lunchtime.
We will, boss.
So, you bashed into an old freight car, Henry.
Someone must have left it there.
Health and safety, Henry.
Henry was an old engine, but he didn't know what health and safety was.
Health and safety, Henry, is watching out for things that might make accidents happen.
And you, Henry, had an accident. Bam!
Later, Henry was fixed.
Watch out now for health and safety. Anything dangerous must be taken away. If not, bam!
Thank you, Victor.
And Henry chuffed carefully out of the steamworks. Henry chuffed and puffed. Then he saw a flatbed of telegraph poles. One pole rolled slowly off and onto the tracks. Henry was worried.
Bust my buffers! An accident could happen here. I must get Rocky.
Henry puffed into the rescue center.
Rocky, come quickly.
Rocky was worried.
You'll have to ask the rescue manager. I might be needed for an emergency.
This is an emergency. Health and safety.
Rocky was puzzled. But health and safety sounded important. So Henry shunted Rocky quickly away. Henry and Rocky puffed to the poles.
Lift them out of the way, Rocky.
Later, Rocky and Henry had put the flatbed safely into a siding. Henry was pleased with himself.
Health and safety is the way to keep the tracks clear every day.
You're right, Henry. Now I have to go back to the rescue center.
Hello, Percy.
Percy was puzzled.
Bubbling boilers? I thought there were telegraph poles here.
Health and safety, Percy.
And Henry puffed away with Rocky. Henry and Rocky chuffed to a junction. Henry saw 4 large rolls of wire. Henry was worried.
Oh my, Rocky! If one of those rolls across the junction, an accident might happen. We must move it.
Aren't you gonna ask first, Henry?
This is an emergency. Health and safety.
Later, the rolls of wire were safely in a siding. Henry was happy.
Health and safety is the way to keep the tracks clear every day.
You're right, Henry. Now I have to go back to the rescue center.
Then, Henry saw Percy again.
Hello, Percy.
Flatten my funnel. I thought there were rolls of wire here.
Health and safety, Percy.
Percy was puzzled.
Now the telegraph poles and the wire have gone.
But Henry was too far away to hear. Henry was steaming slowly to the rescue center. Then Percy raced past.
Cool your pistons, Percy! Slow and careful is the way. Health and safety every day.
But Percy was in too much of a hurry to hear. Later, Henry and Rocky chuffed cheerfully along. Suddenly, Percy whooshed round a bend and stopped.
Oh, no!
Oh, dear.
What's happened, Percy?
I've puffed too far too fast. Now I've run out of water.
Henry was worried.
Rocky will have to move you, Percy. Health and safety.
And before Percy could wheesh another word, he was swinging high above the track from Rocky's long crane arm. Then there was trouble. Sir Topham Hatt arrived. He was cross.
Rocky, what are you doing with Percy?
It's health and safety, sir.
Health and safety have a time and a place, Henry. But now there is an emergency. I need Rocky to help Toby. And Percy has looked all over the island for the telegraph poles and wire he has to deliver.
Henry felt terrible.
I should have asked if I could take Rocky, and I should have asked Percy about the poles and wires. I'm sorry, sir. I wanted to stop accidents, but instead, I have made them happen. May I take Rocky now to the emergency?
Yes, Henry. Right away.
So Percy was lowered with a bump and a jump. Then Henry raced Rocky to Toby. Toby's cowcatcher had caught, and he had derailed. This was an emergency.
Now I must help Percy.
On the way, Henry saw an old freight car on the track. He was worried.
Fizzling fireboxes! Health and safety!
Then Henry saw Thomas.
Thomas, why's this old freight car here?
Don't worry, Henry. I have to shunt it to the coal yard.
Henry felt happy he had asked, and he puffed quickly on. Henry picked up the rolls of wire and the telegraph poles. Then he chuffed cheerfully away to find Percy. Henry found Percy by the water tower. Percy couldn't puff. A tree had fallen across his track.
Oh dear, Percy! Can I help?
Yes, please, Henry.
Henry knew just what to do. Henry chuffed to find Rocky.
Health and safety is the way. Just ask first to save the day.
Pop goes Thomas. It was summer on the island of Sodor. Engines puffed and chuffed happily in the sunshine. The children were excited. Today was their summer picnic in the Whispering Woods. Thomas was excited too. He had a very special.
This is the lemonade for the school picnic, Thomas. You must take it to Whispering Woods Halt.
Yes, sir.
Thomas had never carried lemonade before. He puffed proudly out of Knapford Station. On the way, Thomas went over some bumpy track.
Fizzling fireboxes!
Rattle, rattle, shake, shake went the lemonade in Thomas's freight car. And then, pop went one of the corks. Thomas couldn't see what had made the popping sound.
Bust my buffers! That noise was very funny.
Thomas stopped at a junction.
The Whispering Woods Halt is straight ahead. But if I take the left track, it's bumpier. Maybe then I'll hear the funny popping noise again. I'd like that.
So, Thomas took the left track. The track was very bumpy.
Whoa! If I bounce along the track, perhaps that sound will soon come back. The sound that makes me smile and giggle when I puff on tracks that jiggle.
Rattle, rattle, shake, shake, wobble the lemonade. Pop, 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 burst the corks.
That sound makes me very happy.
Then Thomas saw Mr. Bubbles the clown. He was going to the school picnic too.
Hello, Mr. Bubbles. Isn't this the funniest noise you've heard?
A popping cork hit Mr. Bubbles. It knocked his big red nose off. But Thomas didn't know he'd knocked off Mr. Bubbles' red nose. He was too busy thinking about the next bit of bumpy track.
That was fun. I know where there is some even bumpier track ahead. That means more funny popping.
This track was very bumpy indeed.
If I bounce along the track, perhaps that sound will soon come back. The sound that makes me smile and giggle when I puff on tracks that jiggle.
Rattle, rattle, shake, shake, wobbled the lemonade. Pop, 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 pinged the corks, right into a field of pigs. The pigs were surprised as corks dropped and plopped into the mud around them.
What a jolly noise!
Then Thomas saw some bakers. They were waiting outside the bakery. They were waiting for Emily. Emily was coming to pick up the cakes for the picnic.
Isn't this the funniest noise you've heard?
Popping corks hit the bakers and the cakes. All the cakes were spoiled. But Thomas still didn't notice. He was too busy thinking about the next bit of bumpy track.
If I take this track, it will be the bumpiest track on the whole of Sodor. If I bounce along the track, perhaps that sound will soon come back. The sound that makes me smile and giggle when I puff on tracks that jiggle.
Rattle, rattle, shake, shake, jiggled the lemonade. Pop, 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 pop the corks. Then Thomas saw James. James was taking the children to the picnic.
Hello, James. Isn't this noise the funniest noise you've heard?
But James didn't think it was funny at all when a cork bounced off his shiny red paint.
Flatten my funnel! What was that?
Then there was trouble. The popping corks hit the signalman. He was so surprised, he pulled the wrong lever. The tracks changed. James was sent into a siding. James bumped the buffers. Luckily, no one was hurt. But still, Thomas didn't notice. He was having a wonderful time. At last, Thomas arrived at Whispering Woods Halt. Sir Topham Hatt wasn't happy.
Thomas, you have caused confusion and delay. Mr. Bubbles has lost his nose. Now he will be late. When Emily arrived to pick up the cakes, they were spoiled. James has bumped the buffers, and the bottles in your freight car have lost their corks. The lemonade is all gone.
Suddenly, the very last cork popped and knocked Sir Topham Hatt's hat right off his head. Sir Topham Hatt was surprised. Thomas gasped.
Cinders and ashes. The funny popping sound that made me laugh must have been the corks. This is all my fault, sir.
Thomas felt terrible. Now the children couldn't have their picnic.
I could put this right, sir.
Thomas pumped his pistons and chuffed quickly away. First, Thomas puffed to the bakery. The bakers had baked more cakes, and they were loaded onto Thomas's freight cars. Then, Thomas chuffed to Knapford for more lemonade. He saw Mr. Bubbles. Mr. Bubbles had bought a new red nose.
I'm sorry about your nose, sir. And I'm sorry I made you late. Now, may I take you to the picnic?
That's a splendid idea, Thomas.
Soon, Thomas was steaming back to Whispering Woods Halt. On the way, Thomas told Mr. Bubbles all about the popping corks.
They made a very funny sound. It made me laugh. It made me happy.
Soon, Thomas, you will hear a sound that makes you feel even happier.
Thomas was puzzled. This time at the junction, Thomas took the flat track straight to Whispering Woods Halt. Thomas arrived at Whispering Woods Halt just in time. Not one of the corks had popped. The children saw Thomas had brought Mr. Bubbles and the cakes. Thomas listened to the children, laughing and cheering.
Now, Thomas, that is the happiest sound of all.
You're right, Mr. Bubbles.
And Thomas laughed loudest of all. Thomas in charge. It was a beautiful morning on the island of Sodor. All the engines were busy. Thomas was pleased. He was puffing to Brendam docks to shunt coal cars. Thomas chuffed cheerfully into the docks. Gordon was waiting with the express.
Good morning, Gordon.
Good morning, Thomas.
I'm going to shunt these coal cars faster than fast.
Gordon was happy he didn't have to shunt coal cars.
I'm waiting for Sir Topham Hatt.
Just then, Sir Topham Hatt arrived.
Today is an important day. I am to meet the railroad inspector at Knapford Station. Then I will take him on a tour of the island. Our tour will end here at the docks.
Thomas's boiler bubbled. The railroad inspector was a very important visitor.
Thomas, I want you to be busy shunting cars when the inspector visits. Busy engines will please him most of all.
Thomas's firebox fizzed with excitement.
Bubbling boilers. I must make sure I shunt busier than ever.
Thomas puffed over to the cars.
Shunting cars, I do the best. I biff and bash and never rest.
Suddenly, Thomas stopped. An idea flew into his funnel.
Sir Topham Hatt said, busy engines will please the railroad inspector most of all. I must find more engines to shunt cars. Then the railroad inspector will be really pleased and Sir Topham Hatt will be really proud.
So Thomas left the coal cars and he huffed happily out of the docks. Thomas puffed into Marin Station. Percy was there. He was waiting for his mail cars to be loaded.
Good morning, Percy. I have some important news. The railroad inspector is coming to Brendam Docks. Sir Topham Hatt said it will make the inspector very pleased to see busy engines shunting there. Will you come?
Percy was worried.
I can't, Thomas. I have to deliver the mail.
But shunting cars will please the inspector most of all and make Sir Topham Hatt proud.
Percy wheeshed and whooshed.
All right, Thomas. I'll come with you.
So Percy was uncoupled from his mail cars, and he puffed away with Thomas, just as the railroad inspector arrived with Sir Topham Hatt. They had come to see Percy busy with his mail cars, but the station was very quiet, and Percy was nowhere to be seen. Thomas and Percy didn't know this. They huffed happily into the quarry. Then they saw Mavis.
Hello, Mavis.
Hello, Thomas. Hello, Percy. You look busy.
Suddenly, another idea flew into Thomas's funnel.
I can ask Mavis to come and help us shunt at the docks.
I'm sure she'd like to do that.
Puff on, Percy. I'll ask Mavis.
So Percy steamed on to the docks, and Thomas clattered back into the quarry and up to Mavis.
Mavis, I have some very important news. The railroad inspector is coming to Brendam Docks. Sir Topham Hatt said it will make the inspector very pleased to see busy engines shunting there. Will you come?
Mavis wasn't sure.
I don't think I can, Thomas. I have a lot to do here.
Shunting cars will please the inspector most of all and make Sir Topham Hatt proud.
Mavis wanted to make Sir Topham Hatt proud.
All right, Thomas. I'll come with you.
So Mavis left her slate cars and clattered away with Thomas, just as Sir Topham Hatt and the railroad inspector arrived. They had come to see Mavis busy at work in the quarry. But the quarry wasn't busy. It was very, very quiet. The railroad inspector sighed, and Sir Topham Hatt couldn't believe his eyes. Thomas puffed back to the docks. Percy and Mavis were there. They had shunted a long line of cars. Thomas was pleased. Then he heard Gordon.
Gordon is bringing Sir Topham Hatt and the railroad inspector. Quick, Percy! Hurry, Mavis! We must be as busy as bees. The railroad inspector must be pleased, and Sir Topham Hatt must be proud.
Then there was trouble. Percy shoved, Mavis shunted, and Thomas shouted.
1, 2, 3, push!
The coal cars bashed and biffed together. They juddered and jumped. Coal dust scattered and splattered everywhere. It covered the railroad inspector and Sir Topham Hatt. Then it flew down Gordon's funnel. Gordon spluttered and stuttered.
Oh, the indignity.
Sir Topham Hatt was cross.
Thomas, what have you done?
Thomas felt terrible.
The railroad inspector isn't pleased. Sir Topham Hatt isn't proud. Gordon can't whoosh at all. And it's all my fault.
Thomas knew he had to chuff and puff to put things right.
Sir, I will shunt Gordon to the steamworks. Victor will make sure his funnel is free and his firebox fizzes. Then, Gordon can take you on the tour of Sodor, and I can be really useful.
Sir Topham Hatt was happy to hear this.
Very well, Thomas.
So Thomas heaved and hauled his hardest and shunted Gordon glumly away from the docks. At the steamworks, Victor was happy to welcome Gordon and Thomas.
Well, Thomas, my friend, what have we here?
Gordon grumped and groaned.
Gordon's funnel is blocked with coal dust. He needs a clear funnel and a fizzing firebox.
Then he has come to the right place. Gordon, please stop looking so unhappy. It's only your funnel we must fix, not your pistons that won't pump.
Soon, Gordon's funnel was fixed. His firebox was fiery, and he was ready and raring to take Sir Topham Hatt and the railroad inspector on a tour of the island, and of all the really useful and very busy engines on Sodor. Thomas steamed swiftly back to the docks. He knew he had a lot of work to do. At the docks, Thomas started to shunt and shove. He huffed his hardest.
Shunting cars, I do the best. I biff and bash and never rest.
And he didn't see Sir Topham Hatt and the railroad inspector arrive. They watched Thomas.
Thomas, you are a really useful engine. I am very proud of you.
And I am very pleased to see such a busy engine. I wasn't sure, but now I know Sir Topham Hatt's railroad is the best.
Thomas beamed and gleamed. Sir Topham Hatt smiled and smiled with pride.
Silly me, I was so wrong. I can shunt the whole day long. Never stop and never rest. A busy engine is the best.
Merry Winter Wish. It was the winter holidays on the island of Sodor. All the engines were excited. That evening, Knapford Station was going to be decorated with lots of winter lights. There were to be red lights, green lights, sparkling lights, and even snowflake lights. Thomas chuffed into Brendam docks. All the engines were huffing and puffing busily. Salty rolled over. He had some important news. The engines liked important news.
A ship will arrive from the mainland. It'll deliver a special winter holiday light for Knapford Station. It will be the biggest light of all.
The engines wheezed with wonder.
What's the light called?
It is called the Star of Knapford. It's a very special star. If an engine passes by it, they can make a wish, then maybe, just maybe, their wish will come true.
The engines were very excited. They couldn't wait to see the Star of Knapford. Just then, Sir Topham Hatt arrived.
Thomas, you must wait here. You will have a special to deliver.
Yes, sir.
Thomas's axles tingled and trembled. A special was best of all. Thomas watched and waited. Then his special arrived.
Shiver me timbers, Thomas. Look at that!
Cranky lowered the Star of Knapford gently onto a flatbed. The stars sparked and sparkled. It looked wonderful.
Thomas, you will pull the Star of Knapford to Knapford Station.
Thomas was excited. He thought his pistons would pop.
Bubbling boilers! I can't wait to tell my friends about my special.
So Thomas buffered up to the Star of Knapford. Then he chuffed cheerfully off to Knapford Station. Thomas puffed proudly to a junction. The Star of Knapford shimmered on his flatbed. Then Thomas saw Percy chuff across the bridge above. An idea popped in Thomas's pistons.
I'm sure Percy would like to make a wish. Then maybe, just maybe, Percy's wish will come true, just like Salty said.
So Thomas didn't take the track to Knapford Station. He puffed quickly to follow Percy. At last, Thomas was side by side with Percy.
Percy! Percy! I have the Star of Knapford on my flatbed!
Percy was surprised.
Fizzling fireboxes! Are you taking the star to Knapford Station?
Yes, Percy. After you have made a wish.
So Thomas pulled the star alongside Percy. Percy looked at the star. Then he closed his eyes tight.
I made a wish! Thank you, Thomas.
That made Thomas very happy.
Now I must hurry.
Next, Thomas saw Henry chuffing cheerfully.
I'm sure Henry would like to make a wish.
So Thomas wheeshed and whistled away to follow Henry. Thomas raced after Henry, all the way to Tidmouth Sheds. Henry saw the Star of Knapford on Thomas's flatbed. His boiler bubbled brightly.
Oh, Thomas, you're lucky. Are you taking the star to Knapford?
Yes, Henry, after you have made a wish.
So Henry closed his eyes.
I made my wish. Thank you, Thomas.
That made Thomas even more happy.
Hooray! I hope all my friends' wishes will come true.
Thomas chuffed on to Knapford Station. James puffed quickly past.
I'm sure James would like to make a wish.
So Thomas raced after James. Thomas chased James all the way up Gordon's Hill. Then there was trouble. Thomas rattled and raced down the hill.
Stop, James!
Thomas's flatbed jiggled and joggled. The Star of Knapford wiggled and wobbled. Thomas was worried.
Cinders and ashes! This is fast!
Thomas applied his brakes. His wheels squawked and squeaked. Sparks flickered and flashed. At last, Thomas screeched to a stop. The Star of Knapford flew high into the sky. It floated and flickered right over James and Henry and Percy. Then crashed with a crunch and a crack onto the track in front of Thomas. Thomas gasped.
The star is broken. Now my friends' wishes might not come true. And it's all my fault.
Thomas was upset.
How can I get the star to Knapford now? Sir Topham Hatt and the other engines will be waiting.
Thomas decided to make a wish.
Maybe, just maybe, my wish will come true.
Thomas closed his eyes.
I wish that one of my friends would come to help me.
Suddenly, Percy, Henry, and James whooshed towards him. Thomas's wheels wobbled with wonder.
We saw the Star of Knapford fly high in the sky.
Are you all right, Thomas?
Thomas looked at his friends. Then he looked at the broken star.
I have been a very silly engine. I wanted you all to make wishes, so I didn't go straight to Knapford. I puffed too far and too fast. Please, will you help me?
Thomas's friends were happy to help. Percy watched the star. Henry fetched workmen to fix it. And Thomas and James found Rocky. They huffed him quickly to the star. Soon, the workmen had fixed the star. Rocky lifted it carefully back onto Thomas's flatbed.
Thank you all. Now we must hurry to Knapford.
So, together, the engines wheeshed and they whooshed across Sodor. They arrived just in time. Everyone watched as Rocky put the Star of Knapford high above the station. Then they clapped and cheered as the star was switched on. It shimmered and shone brightest of all.
Thank you, Percy, Henry, Rocky, and James. I'm very lucky to have you all as friends. I'm sorry that your wishes didn't come true.
Mine did. I wished that we'd all be together under the Star of Knapford. So did I.
So did I.
Thomas smiled from footplate to fender. His friends' wishes had come true. And that made Thomas happiest of all.